Manhood, brought to you by Jameson, natural sources since 1922, and Racetrack.
Thanks for joining us again on Manhood, another conversation about all things man, boys. I mean, we even talk about women, because all that is part of manhood and what it takes to be a man. And again, I always want to reiterate that what it takes to be a man is not based on testosterone or whether you like sports. It's simply based on a behavior and your moral standard. And that's what we're trying to communicate and get across here in these conversations that we have. I hope you've been enjoying it so far and taking note of a lot of what we're saying, because as much as we try to bring some element of humor and meet people where they're at, the topics and the message is one that is very, very serious. I'm delighted with our panel today. Johanse Ayodike, behavior change consultant, one of my really good friends, though we don't support the same football side. Jason Williams.
Yes, give thanks.
And the one and only Niall McNish.
What's up?
Yeah.
So last conversation, we were talking about why do men cheat? And of course, we then went on to why do women cheat? Why do we cheat? And that really brought about some really engaging conversation and gave me pause for transgressions in the past. Today's topic is specifically now, and it's going to be a big one. Can women have guy friends? I'm just going to open the floor.
All right. I'll put it a little general. Can men and women be friends? Right? And I would say no, firstly. Because, and be friends and just stay friends.
Right.
To me, what entails being a friend is a sharing of certain intimate details of your life. And when you share that with someone, eventually, of the opposite sex, eventually feelings will start, right? More than platonic feelings. So you could have a female associate. Let's say, okay, you're married in a committed relationship. You could have somebody of the opposite sex as an associate, as a colleague. When you reach the realms of friend, that's where danger could start, because there's emotional sharing, there's intimate sharing, and both of you all will kind of get into each other's life in a certain degree that could start to grow things.
But Jay, I just want to go ahead. I have my point.
I was just going to say, I mean, intimate sharing, yes, but does that necessarily mean the relationship will get to a place of intimacy? And I do feel so, especially if there's no kind of sexual energy or no attraction, really. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, it have friends, female friends, you'll have who you might actually be a type, and if they slip.
They slide.
Yeah.
well, then there's not your friend. And
When I start off as friends, but I mean, a situation presents itself, a nice, cool night somewhere in Tobago under there.
Cool.
And, it's softening. It's softening. Let's be real.
So,
As opposed to, let's say, a friend that's your friend, and the night could be cool, it could be wherever, but you're cool.
but I want to really explore
Attraction important.
No, I even want to contest that. But just to touch on start off what Johanse said. Where's that line evident? So you always hear when you're dating, are we an item now? People ask the question, at what point do you become an item? Are you dating? Does it mean that you can date other people? When those conversations don't happen. So if I have a colleague, at what point is it evident that we are now friends?
Good
If I'm your colleague for 8 years and we've shared some conversations, even if it's a case of how that party was, or how that line was, or my condolences, or congratulations on your wedding, these are things that when do you cross over into what could be seen as a friendship? And therefore, it still comes down to the point of, can I be friends? And to touch on what you said, attraction, matraction. Once you reach a point of, like you said, you call it's a cold night in Tobago.
Right.
Man is man, an opportunity is opportunity. And there are times, Jay,
Nah,
let's be honest,
man
fellas.
is-
Let's
woman
be
is
honest.
Woman is woman too. I don't just say
Let's be
man
honest.
is
You're
man.
going up, you know those things that I've heard. I mean, I've heard conversations about these things like peepholes and things like that, right? And lights off, whatever the case may be, and something happening. Does it matter at that particular point?
I think it does. I think, it boils down again. Everybody will be an individual when it comes to this particular development, and people could only really speak on themselves and what they'll do. But I think sincerely, if you're in tune with yourself, don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It takes a lot of self-restraint. But I think you could put it in such a way that it won't go cross that particular line, as opposed to if you really have an attraction to somebody, I think it's a little more difficult. And if somebody asks, what are we? I remember somebody once saying that you tell the girl that we are the world, we are the children. We are the world. We are the children. We are the world. What are we? What kind of question is that? People should know. You don't have to ask these questions to define relationships. You must know what a friendship is.
Now, women need to ask that question to define relationships, because if left up to men, we will just go, we will ride our bus until the end, until we'll never actually give them a point. But to bring it back to if women could have male friends, right? The reality is that I say yes, simply because women get inundated with men whole day, and they get to choose who they decide they want to get with, right? So it really boils down to if it is a man is okay with himself of her having options so close within her sphere. That's literally what we're talking about here. I say yes. I say it's not a problem, personally.
I want to bring it back to the original question, right? And put more clarity on the question. Can women have guy friends? But it is not necessarily that the woman themselves or the woman herself may be attracted to the man.
Right.
But the man, so in other words, let's flip it.
He wants a jam.
It. Can a man is just there in the wings, and at this point he might even realize, but if the opportunity was there, she says,
Then
look,
that is not a friend.
come. Well,
Nobody's a friend.
That's not a
Nobody's a
friend.
friend.
If the man want to jam you, that he's not your friend.
I don't understand that. I can't accept that answer. What you mean?
Yeah, you answer. I feel we gotta
what
shift
is a
it from
friend
last-
then? Let us define
Then
friend.
you're maybe a lover in wait. You're waiting for an opportunity, but then it's not a friend, because friend,
Jay, tell him.
unless all
Tell
it
him.
together
Tell him for me.
is platonic, right? Me and my wife could be friends,
Right.
and we together, right? But if she have somebody who is a male friend who looking for the opportunity to jam, then that is not her friend.
Right.
That man
Jay,
in the
talk
slips,
to him.
That man
Talk to
in
him.
the slips,
That's not
he's
her
waiting
friend.
for edge.
But that is not her friend.
This man here living in a utopian world.
Nah.
No,
You
know
living in
what
a
it is, right?
utopian world.
I
That is
look
not
at
her
it from
friend.
the realm again. I go back to my original point of intimacy. Intimacy changes everything.
Now, intimacy is not only sex, eh?
Well, I talk in sex. I talk
Right,
in
okay,
intimacy.
so let me use the word sex.
Okay,
then.
sex then.
Right.
All right. It end up going down that particular road. That is where now feelings get involved and the dynamics change. Up until that point, it's a friendship,
Correct.
But you could be
And
being friends with the woman doesn't necessarily mean you friends with the boyfriend or the husband or anything else. You are still could be friends with that person.
But you want to
And-
jam?
But we are not necessarily going in there saying you want a jam.
key is you
Men are opportunistic. We had other conversations where we talk about polyamorous relationships and people.
But I think the key is knowing your partner. And if I'm dealing with somebody and that's my girl, you get to the place of that's your wife, you will know what she might be attracted to, who she on. And if the man kind of, that is why men is digger horrors with other men. Because you know personally that this man actually might capture the eyes and attention of a woman. But if it's a guy totally out of her spectrum, you mightn't dig horrors. You don't feel threatened.
That's the thing.
A guy
So the
totally
guy,
out of her spectrum.
so the woman may not act on it, so the woman could have a guy friend. But let's face it, the guy himself might be like, hey, she's our best, she's out of my league. But if an opportunity presented it himself, he will never act on it because he would lose that friendship because she is not
So
interested.
it's a one-way friendship. So she's his friend, but he's not her friend.
But you have this understanding of because you want a jam means you're not a friend. That is a very.
Basically.
That is a very.
that's
So
the
with
thing,
friends
because
with
if you
benefits-
want to jam, is not
Friends with
that is not
benefits is
friendship.
not a thing in your will.
No, that is just a relationship with a relationship with sex. You're not really friends, and or sometimes you see that friends with benefits. That's a couple by one or both people because they don't want to commit. What they really have is a relationship.
It is a
Right?
relationship.
They're really in a relationship,
Let's-
but
Listen,
they coupling out in some way.
sometimes my friend, my close friend, that I will look at as, yo, I'm not that interested.
You're not that
she-
interested.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Dictionary meaning for your benefit. The meaning of
Very
friend:
dictionary meaning.
a person with whom one has a bond of mutual affection. Let me read that again.
Mutual
A person
affection,
with
right?
whom
Okay.
one has a bond of mutual affection. I take your point. Typically, one exclusive of sexual or family relations. Typically.
Typically, right?
Typically.
Mutual affection
Doesn't mean
right?
there's not an exception.
Okay.
But let me
So
go- let
having
me
the
go
exception,
mutual affections, right? If she don't want to jam, but he want to jam, then it's not mutual affections.
typically, the word is. You want me to Google the word typically?
All right. I'm going with typically, right?
Because there's an exception. So generally, I have female friends, and I can tell you, I don't want to jam them. Not because they're not attractive, but the friendship means way
Way
more
more,
than
right.
anything being skewed in there. And of course, I also want to be faithful to my partner. But I wouldn't say that in the past I didn't have female friends who that I may have wanted something more or would have taken the opportunity on a cold night in Tobago.
So I want to ask now, and let's be real, because real talk and
Real talk.
Right.
That's all we are.
Plenty times women will transition into friendship because at some point, at some moment,
Friend
that
zone.
early part of the relationship, when you saw this person, get to know them, you wanted to, but sometimes you realize the person not your near, the energy not there, so you just segue now into friendship because it come like you bowl your ball and you bowl wide.
Right. Gutter ball.
Right, you bowl a ball already early, the ball was wide, but you just, because you don't want to make it look like you fox can get the grapes, so you see
Yeah.
sour, you act normal, and it end up now developing into a friendship.
Yeah,
You realize
sure.
with now, this girl really have nice ways, and you're cool, but you bowl a ball already,
But-
and you're
but-
not going to bowl the ball
yeah.
again.
But if
And you're not
but
going to
if
bowl the ball again.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
gonna bowl the
go
ball
ahead.
again.
Go
but
ahead,
if
man.
she say cold night in Tobago happen.
6.
Exactly, and see, that's my point.
No, but that's still
right?
make it
No.
that, but you're still
If I bowl
friends.
the ball and it wide, I good.
Listen, thus far,
I not talk about
thus far, I go in with evidence, right?
Right.
I am okay to change in my thoughts, but I have not seen that happen, right? All men, this is not in the world, all men I've spoken
let me
to,
get the meaning typically
all
for
women,
your answer.
right? Right? That say they have this friendship with somebody eventually, and even me observing, eventually, something could or does happen in that. And the only reason it does not happen is because maybe it was circumstantial. But if you're saying at first, I don't want to sleep with this person, but if you get the opportunity, you will, right?
It's not a conscious thing.
You mean
It's not a conscious thing. I'm saying that people, in the same way colleagues can develop you could develop a friendship as a result of being a colleague over extensive period of time. If that friendship and the status of that friendship changes, whether it be the person that they may be with, you get a divorce or they're no longer with that person, your circumstances change, you may be working on a project, you see things that you didn't notice before, things develop. You always hear people say, that person is now my best friend.
Right.
Let me give you a biological perspective of this, right? So, when two people meet each other for the first time, right? You're always on guard because you don't know this person. Whether it is male, female, exactly, you don't know this person, so you're on guard, right? But the more that you see this person, the more you interact with this person, naturally your guard go down, right?
Chemistry.
And I believe, I believe it's serotonin is the hormone that is produced when you're around somebody you're comfortable with, right? So the more you're around this person, the more comfortable you get. Then, and I'm going biological. So you talk about conscious just now. So I'm going unconscious now. Unconsciously, your guard open. Your guard open somebody. So if it's a male and female, your guard open, and that's where the feelings come in sometimes, and you don't even know where it come from. Because even though you don't follow through on something, right? You might say, well, how come I'm feeling this way about this person? Or the person might pass and touch you by mistake, and you feel a certain way. Or you're studying, I want to talk to this person, and then why I want to talk to him or her, boy? What I'm saying is, it happens unconsciously. And I'm going to add a caveat to that quick. It's like a woman passing every day and a man suiting she. And the man, that is not she type. She's
Right.
not on him at all, right? But every day suiting, darling, you're looking good. Every day. Eventually, right, she'll realize he's not dangerous, right? The first time she see him, he might be dangerous. Eventually, right? So like we say, it happened for a month straight. After a while, when she passed by him, one day he's not there. And he didn't suit. She will miss him. Maybe not even consciously. It's unconsciously something that happens. And attraction, part of that too, is unconscious. So therefore, if you're talking to somebody all the time, which is your friend, if you're using your friend, so your colleague, you've seen them every day, you're not consciously, I don't want to sleep with this person, but you've seen them every day,
Right.
eventually that occurs.
So
A cool night.
I hate to break the
It's me
momentum. I hate to break the momentum, but we certainly coming back and continue with that biology and that science, because there's money more than the pestle with regards to that. And we're gonna turn it on its head now, because we keep saying, can women have guy friends? But the truth is, if women could have guy friends, or we're saying, according to Steve Harvey, no, they can't, right? The question is then, is it then that your male partner, women, can then have a girlfriend? Because then can males
Say
have
female friend.
can they have a female friend? So it turns it on its head. So guys, be very, very careful with what you're really saying or accepting. But we take a short break. So I'd really like to thank you for staying with us, and to thank our sponsors, Jameson and Racetrack. A really snazzy set. You know, everyone who comes on the set says they feel a sense of testosterone being on this set. And part of that testosterone is not necessarily what it takes to be a man. I mean, it's part of the biology, as my friend here was discussing just before the break. But it's all about standards and morals. And speaking of morals, speaking of biology, this is where we now turn things on the head. Because the opening question, the opening salvo was all about, can women have guy friends? But if we're saying, and I've looked at quite a few podcasts, if men across the globe are saying no, women can't have guy friends, then it means that all friends are supposed to be female, male, male. Because if I'm saying to my partner, oh, you can't have any guy friends because I know what guys are thinking, what's going on in their head, then can she not ask me, so therefore how come you can have girlfriends? It means that you aren't you a guy? It means you are thinking the same way. So be very careful with exactly what you're willing to accept or not accept, and what your position is. And this based on that, I see you smiling there like, oh my God, people are going to be set up now in a particular way. But that's the truth. We're not about, on this show, we're about being real. We're meeting people where they're at. We're talking real things. And we're not about, being false, or being, what is good for the goose must be good for the gander.
I agree.
So, with that being said,
No, the answer is no. Men can't have female friends either.
That is
So,
weird.
this guy-
don't you
this guy
see how
here-
unbalanced that is as humans? For us to say that if I'm in a relationship, I can't have any female friends. You're not learning any skills.
I'm not saying don't talk to females. I'm not saying don't have
Friends. We're talking
Right.
about people, confidants that you could speak with.
Why
This-
confiding in somebody else besides your husband or your wife?
because they might have other things.
Some
that
of
I
my
don't
best-
feel
It could be a
comfortable
therapist,
with.
it could have a professional environment.
Yeah, but again, let's go back down to learning skills, right? As humans, we have to be as balanced as possible. They might have things, let's just say I don't have a wife, right? I don't have a girlfriend. Am I able to have a female friend at that point?
If you don't have a wife or a girlfriend, it could start as a friendship. But even why you decide to talk to this person, right? It could depends on, okay, if you decide I want to talk to this person because they're nice to talk to,
Right, yeah.
right? That doesn't necessarily mean as a friend. That could be an associate because you haven't shared anything, you're not close, anything like
Well,
that.
all right, but as everything, it grows into something
Right?
more.
So it goes into friendship. So you all haven't slept together yet, right?
That's correct.
Right? At that point, when you get that close to the person, you will develop feelings.
Well, right, but I can
I'm
develop feelings.
I'm
I can develop
struggling.
feelings.
I am struggling.
What is the word feeling in this particular situation?
I think we need to go back to the word friend too, because I know Robert gave us the dictionary. A lot of us in life, I realize, is acquaintances we have. The word friend.
True. Okay, fine.
I could count friends probably on one hand, and it will boil down to people probably from foundation, which will be like a cousin or somebody that you grew up with, somebody that you real connect with in school, and probably, let's say, from the workplace. Most people have, I would say, 3, 4, some people 1 friend, you know.
Okay, friend,
So
right.
if we're talking about it as real friend, now for me, do I have like a real close female friend? I could probably say 1. And again, it have no sexual energy there. That is just my real sister. We could be wherever. She could come out in wherever. I know we're not going through that.
There's the question.
I agree.
She
If
could come
you
out in
slip,
it.
if you slip, would she slap you for 6?
No, I don't feel so.
No,
I
two
think
of my closest friends are female, and that there's nothing there, nothing happening in any circumstance.
I think when a girl said I call you brother, and you said that see a girl as a sister, that is when
I
the
like
friendship,
that.
I think, because those are the words women use to describe you. Know, when
Exactly.
when you are no harm and no threat to them, I feel you want say. They say, hey, that Niall, that Robert, that you want say, that Jason, my brother. And then you will also associate them and you'll say them as sister. Because let's be real, nobody looking at the sister or the brother in our way. But it's very rare. You probably might get 1 in your lifetime. I can't see other females in your life as friends, them as acquaintances. Them can't be friends.
Okay.
Because let's be real, that same cold night in Speyside, when rain falling, after 3 in the morning, all you come back from a Juve party is blast.
So wait, I want to
Okay.
bring it back because I don't
Real
want us to
talk.
go.
Yes.
We're talking about the definition of friends and acquaintances here, but let us whatever we understand by friend, friends are friends. You guys are my friends. Whether we talk every day, whether we you know what happened with
Life.
my life and all the other things like that matters not. The fact is, there may be levels of friendship. You know, there may be friends that you go to for certain things, and other ones, like you said, could be a day ones you're real. As we said, we cross over to my real brethren, my real sisterin. But that being said, the topic, as we say, I want to make it clear. I am one to say women can have guy friends, but the woman also needs to be cognizant of the fact that don't be naive to the fact that
Of course.
something could happen. And guys likewise, women, because people naturally, you know, they say opportunity makes a thief. If somebody's passing and they're not a painter, say for example, or anyone is passing, and you see $1,000 on a table, you didn't come there to steal, but you see that there, you might be struggling
And
a
you
bit.
pick it up, there's a thief. That means it was
this what I'm saying,
inside of you.
not
So it's the same way. It's the same way with men and women.
Right, so
Inside of you.
exactly,
You
but
pick it up.
that doesn't mean
Leave it alone,
that
it's
they're not be friends. So when we talk about let's talk about our own stories here
right.
about this proverbial shoulder to cry on.
Well, I have learned through my experience that as much as what we're seeing here on paper, it makes sense. It's very much a good working template. In practice, it don't work out because I've learned and I end up losing out in a relationship based on me being adamant and standing firm and saying, hey, that is my female friend and I know them before I know you. So you gotta respect them because they in my life long before I know you, and she didn't give way and I didn't give way, and eventually she was leaving. She went. I'm leaving. She gave me the I'm leaving, and I stand up there and I kind of bubble now.
Right.
And I get to realize now, you have to kind of almost put some of them girls on pause, them female friends. Be cool with them, you know, but I realize you have to kind of put them on pause, especially if you want the relationship. I
Why
realize
are they
to
put
work.
them on pause?
Because the women are seeing that they're like in a vibe at all. They're going to see that.
Not everybody mature and able to have the
That's why I
opposite
learned,
have
I
a
don't
have a
You see,
female on
you
board.
But
use
is that
that word
maturity?
mature.
I
You
would say
use
that.
the
I
word
would-
naivety, right? When somebody naive, that means you don't even know what's going on now, right? So that means you could get catch, right? And you don't even know. So going back with the biological part of it, right? Sometimes what causes naivety
Give
is
me a
not
story
even-
instead of the biology, you know.
All right.
It- a scenario, I could relate more the scenario in the biology. I could Google
I'll
it.
give you something
Back on this one.
quite personal too, right? I grew up hearing that certain things about my father in terms of him not being faithful to my mother and you know, in terms of running down women and thing. And I said, I swear to myself, I'm not going to be that person. So from young, maybe even anywhere between 8 and 10, I remember reading psychology books on women and how to treat women and things like that, and you know, understanding the plight of women with men, etc. So I say, you know what? I'm going to treat as many women good as possible. And you know what? I'm just going to be their friend. I'm not going to go after them for nothing. So as many women, and then I remember I was in Form 2 or Form 3, and sitting down there, and I remember on Valentine's Day, writing 5 different poems, trying to be unique, and saying, wait now, I becoming what I didn't want to become. But thinking all of these girls, in my mind, were my friends, but because of spending time talking to them, being that shoulder to cry on, showing them love, and when I say love, platonic love, the feelings develop, whether or not I wanted it to. And I say, but how I came to this point? And then I say and I thought maybe something wrong with me. But then I started observing it throughout the years with other people, male and female, and realizing if you continue along this path, feelings will eventually develop. And
Right.
again, I open to changing it to know, but I haven't had any empirical evidence to show otherwise.
You know, in school, at those times, good guys finish last. I'm just saying, you know,
Facts.
later on, they may want to. That's a whole other conversation again. But
So let me go into say that to the nation, shoulders are for legs, not tears, right? But we'll move on to. Let me give you a story, right?
Yes.
Let me give you a story. So I had a friend. Most of my friends are actually female.
Let me do this, right? We had a friend, right?
I had a friend,
Like
right?
friend? Like friend?
Like as in I've over 20 years friendship,
Friend, okay.
right?
Had past tense.
Well, we still friends to this day, but I'm gonna give a story now that may give some evidence to what you're saying to make your point. But we were friends for over 20 years. I see her kids grew up, as in I was always there, part of her life, right? And one day, she was down bad. You understand? The person that her
Cold night in space.
a cool night in space side happened, you understand? Baby dad wasn't giving any blah blah blah. So she asked to borrow some meat. You understand? And I loaned her the meat. I loaned her the meat. I
Where
say
you
this is
were on your friend
I
right
say this
now,
is
boy.
a
After
temporary
20,
loan.
After boy.
you know, for a moment there, I was really hoping when you said some meat, I was hoping you meant like a cup of sugar. That analogy, I didn't
Asked
realize.
for a
Okay,
little
it's
bit
nice.
of sausage. I lent it to her.
You're obliged.
I obliged. It made her feel better. It made her feel wanted. It made her feel
It filled up.
like it filled her up. She felt like a woman again, which is what she was valuing. We went the day after. We went back to how we were until the day I feel like I need to get my payment back. I would like, you understand, some salami. At some point, maybe, you know, if ever I feel like, you know, hey, I don't feel like a man right now. Remember that loan that I gave back in the day?
So, I just want to say,
know?
Nation, remember we spoke about when I said the definition of a friend, and we spoke about typically. So typically, there's always an exception. Meet Niall McNish.
I don't know if that is the exception or no. I think,
But we still friends.
opposite, I think that is the rule, not the exception.
But we still cool. Like, think about it. How
All they're cool, right?
Right.
But all is not friends.
But wait, I find that I was even more of a friend than anybody. I did what most friends want. I was there for her inside and out. When you really think about it, I gave her what she needed.
point in time.
That is not a friend. That's something a little more than a friend, maybe less than a husband or a boyfriend, right?
Jay.
And I don't want to get too semantic, but that's not your friend. You all are not friends.
I don't know how.
Because then we go in before we said friends with benefits. We come back because you all are friends, but they are those benefits. Then you all are not friends.
Well, I think what's important.
Based on your definition.
I think what's important and what I get to understand in the journey, if you meet someone and you and like say you meet a girl and you and the girl developing a vibe and you know you're seeing potential, yeah, I think it's important to kind of introduce her to your friends and let her see from the onset this is your circle And if there are female person in the mix, let her know this is my sister from long time,
Right.
and see how that dynamic work out. Because sometimes, funny enough, your girl and your female friend does end up real close, like as in they like sisters, and then sometimes the chemistry off, she don't like her thing, and in that moment you have to make a decision, and most times you go with where you're getting the warmth when the night comes, which is with your woman.
I guess, yes.
And sometimes friendships have to kind of fall up, which I find real sad because, again, these are people in your life for years before you meet this particular person. But it's, again, as a man, how serious you want that relationship to establish itself, because love, again, and relationship is a choice. And if you make a choice that, in my mind, as I learn the game now, if I make a choice that this is what I want, sometimes them thing are the kind of, you got to kind of ease off, especially if it's a female dynamic. Because women just feel threatened too within that vibe.
So it comes to that moment again, and on this show, we always pride ourselves to say that even though there's equal opinion, the opinion is never just based on what that person is. So I don't want us to be walking away thinking this person thinks this or this person thinks that. It's a conversation that's
We're
happening.
having a conversation.
And even though it might be 4 persons, the irony is, even though it seems like 3 have one side of an opinion to a 4th, it still comes down to it's an equal viewpoint because it's a conversation. We're taking a short break, and during that break, I wish
to
you
this
guys could hear
conversation.
some of the behind the scenes.
The loan officer here, but loan officer.
The conversation is about, can women have guy friends? Can men have women friends? The definition came about what is a friend, what is an acquaintance. Can you, as some may say, can you have a friend, jam, and go back to being that friend? There's so much conversation happening here, and again, I'd really love if some of you at some point will be open to seeing some of the behind-the-scenes conversations and the conversations that lead to eventually what we then dialogue when the cameras come back on. So mixed feelings, mixed emotions. A lot of yeses, a lot of nos. Still some very vague areas. I'm not sure I've transitioned to any particular side as yet. I'm still of the opinion, yes, a man can have a female friend, and yes, a female can have a guy friend. And even though in certain cases things may materialize and become something else, I don't think that takes away from the fact that they were friends or could be friends initially. Circumstances, human nature, biology, all of these other things come into play. And I want to say to you, if you had a friend, whether you call it a friend, acquaintance, colleague, whatever tickles your pickle, your fancy, right? For a particular definition. And you're in a, let's go really out there. You're in a cave. You go on a hike. And don't tell me that you should have gone on a hike in the first place with the woman, right? We play it out here. You're in a cave caves in, and you're there you see it in the movies, you end up having to go and hunt together, bathe together, all of these different things happen. You live, right? So over a period of time, you want to tell me, Blue Lagoon, for those of you who are old enough to know.
Big movie.
Something wouldn't happen, something wouldn't transpire.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying.
So at that point, it's not your friend anymore, because you clearly can't.
Yeah, if something happens, that's not your friend.
So what changes?
Nation.
What changes?
All right. So I was being a bit hard and fast, right? For a
Correct,
reason.
I felt so.
For a reason, right? Now, we using these terms, friends, associates, and transition into friendship, colleagues, etc.
Colleagues.
Right? Some of it could be semantics because human behavior is a dynamic thing in general. And I will go back to even what we started with the pillar with manhood about being true to yourself. As a man, you got to be honest with yourself, right? You know the type of feelings you have for a female. Whether it is you're developing a new relationship, old relationship, however long it is, friends, etc. So you ought to know exactly how you feel. Now, you can't account for the other person's feelings, right? But you're accounting for yourself. You would know if you're talking to this person a little too much, if you start to feel a certain way, right? Now, even if you all never cross the platonic lines, physically, you know how you're feeling. You know sometimes if you're in an intimate moment with somebody else, you might be thinking about that person. You know exactly what is going on. And I'm going with that honesty part because sometimes we say, well, nah, nothing ever happened between, I will never think with she or she never come around with, but you know.
That
you
is
know,
the dialogue.
You know in your
That-
heart now. You know in your heart that you would do something. You know in your heart that this person like you, but she married, you married, but if all you was married, you know
Yeah.
when something more than platonic
Or
is
you might have
going
been
on.
friends before, and you simply, as Jay mentioned, you simply don't want to lose that friend. You want your cake and you want to eat it.
So yes, no, and not only going from a sexual or physical point of view, even let's go to the emotional point. You have a wife, you have a girlfriend, right? To me, that's supposed to be the person that you have most of your emotional space with, you share the most with. So if you start to feel like, well, you know, I really, something happened, but I really want to run to talk to Susie instead of your wife, or Susie instead of your girlfriend. No, nothing to anybody named Susie, right? You know that something wrong and you should be pulling back. And I'm just going with that honesty part because human behavior can't predict everything, right? It have no hard and fast exactly what is a friend, my definition, your definition, the south, the north, the west definition. But to be
Okay.
honest with yourself, you know when that line crossing most of the times because there's naivety, there's biology. But you know when you're crossing that
Let
line
me ask another
most
question
of the
then,
times.
right? So what about a man who's bisexual? He with his wife, but all of a sudden he started to think about he brethren while he's stroking
point.
on he gal. You understand? Is he not to have male friends now?
Friends just lock off at that point.
He's just supposed to be by himself? So that it just goes, and the reason why I ask that question is to show that it,
Well, he's not to have that male friend. If you're thinking about stroking,
So then-
using your word,
no,
that
so then-
person with then
No,
then don't
no,
have-
no.
so
Now
then,
make
so
your
then,
point.
so
Take
then,
it
so
to
then
us.
you're making my point. So in other
Correct.
words, let us stop generalizing that I can't have women friends.
Correct.
Let us say I can't have that woman friend as part of my life because I have a certain type of feeling towards this
Yes.
woman. So I need to be mature within myself and know maybe this is not the person I should expose myself and my relationship to based on my understanding of my needs and my girlfriend's needs.
Here I get to realize too.
I'm all in on that. Go ahead.
I get to realize within my observation again, within the life and within my journey, if marriage is the pinnacle, look at scenarios where even as a brethren, so now as my brethren, we roll in, I'm a real partner. Now I'll come and get married now. Our friendship actually will take a little knock, you know. Even our male friendship, as in I can call you up and say, hey, Song Forge, weekend, I can call you up and say, my
Wingman.
arrow. You now kind of have to get a passport stamp with a say that as a joke, meaning, well, it's not like you had to get permission, but it's just you don't want to rock that boat so early.
Right.
So I realized that even friendship and the dynamic you feel and you have with your male brethren is kind of get knocked worse yet your female friends. So in
Sure,
essence,
sure.
I think ultimately once you go to that particular place, it come like that's your friend. It come like you had to not say lock off your friends, because you need them still. You still need your circle. But the dependence and I guess the whole connection do be as much compared to when you're free, single, and disengaged.
So
That's just my observation.
Okay.
I
I see
I've
what
been
you're
very
saying.
pensive
I see what you're saying.
in you know, I love it when you have pause. When you have pause for thought. You know, I came in here with a particular thought, and you know, even though I may still side with a particular opinion or how I definitely want to present myself. You guys have certainly gave me a lot of pause, and I'm sure to all our viewers and listeners out there. You know, I just want to throw in maybe a you know, and as you quite rightly mentioned, now we've sort of broad brushed this thing to male, female, you know, heterosexual relationships. But what happens to gay relationships and bisexuals?
I think lots of women, men don't mind if the girl, actually men, some men very cool with the woman having a gay brethren because they don't feel
Correct.
threatened.
Correct.
Because they know the man not on her in that way.
Yeah.
The big drawing, the
Not
line,
in my,
but-
not in
but-
my experience,
the
but
line-
that could be
but
a
I could
different
tell you,
the
I've
conversation.
line in the sun is intimacy, you know.
But I could tell you some stories. I mean, I won't call any names now of people who started off having male gay friends, and the male gay friend became that shoulder, legs up on the shoulder. So instead of the shoulder to
Walking
cry,
on the
I just
ceiling.
saying,
No.
But
And that's
but-
that's
if it's
reinforcing
a-
my point.
I
That's
want to say-
reinforcing
He's
the
a
point.
wolf in sheep clothing. Hey, and then it's, hey, he went from hey to hey. No, you don't do that. Nah,
So
that blew my mind.
I want to throw in another scenario before we close here today, to say that I am 6'3", bald, red man, and I can say that I have lost all my female friends. There have been instances where people really close to me, the dynamic has changed purely because, like you said, they're in relationships, or just generally with the advent of social media and people just talking and the negativities and people just saying certain things that they don't know about. The assumption is he's a player. He must be, boy, if that woman with him, something must be happening. Or I saw them out having lunch. Or I saw, they went to dinner or they're friends. Watch yourself there, And that play on that can also be feeding in to these things. Because I can tell you the two women who I have had in terms of have to create distance as a result of what's been fed. Naturally, optics. Perception is fact. So the husbands or boyfriends, not that they believe anything has happened, but because of the optics of it, they've asked to be pulled away, or they question or anything that happens there. And for me, it's been a very sad period, because I'm like, I know with everything in me, absolutely nothing is happening or will happen, because the nature of that friendship is on a spiritual basis. It's on guidance. It's on so many other things of sharing, things that I know you believe you should be doing with your wife, but you have horses for courses, and you have friends for different things in certain areas. And the person I'm with might be someone who can spiritually guide me. Hence, you have godfathers and godmothers, etc. And they may be the person you turn to for another point of view.
Another perspective, yes.
Another perspective. But as a result of look or attraction or the perception of they must be banging, they must be doing something, you've lost that person. So there are instances, and I'm stating my position as part of my closing. Women can have guy friends, and guys can have women friends, and whether, bisexual, you can have male and female friends, but it comes down to one thing. As we talk about on manhood, about morals, and you knowing that this friendship is based on friendship, and you know to yourself you're not attracted to that person in any way, form, or fashion, apart from what that friendship brings, and even more so, in that particular scenario, being cognizant of the environment. So don't go in a corner. Don't go say, I'm going and party with my friends. Because she dress up nice and you're taken out, and the wife is staying home with the kids, so you're going out with your girl, your hot friends, and you're all partying and whining and all these other things. Smarten up.
Bucks.
Interesting. You want to say? Where's it?
This is your closing, huh?
I know that,
Make it count.
What I would say is, to be honest, what I was saying a little bit before, however you define a friend, or you define an associate, or you define a colleague, is to be honest about how you feel about somebody. And what you were saying about the optics of things, I agree with shun the very appearance of evil, right? Whether or not you read the Bible or not, shun the very appearance of evil. Also, the morality part of it, because as human, we won't only be attracted to one person, right? You would feel, whether you're in a 50-year marriage or not, you would feel attraction to someone else. So to be honest about that in terms of how
Exactly.
you want to develop a certain relationship, whether you want to call it a friendship, whether you want to call it an associate, etc., be honest about that. And also, you would know, you will be able to even feel, whether it is from that person or even from yourself, when something going into the realm of for want of a better word, inappropriate. For want of a better word, you're becoming so that close with somebody that it's taken away from the emotional, and even going the physical part of it. Because once you have sex with somebody, you cross the platonic lines. But even now, the emotional part of it, you have a friend of the opposite sex, you're sharing so much that sometimes you forget to tell your wife, or you forget to tell your husband certain things, or you tell that person first before you tell your wife or your husband. I do believe that's right. So it's being honest about it in terms of yourself, however you define it, and stick to whatever is your moral and moral values.
I mean, I went down that road already in the sense that a girl had me there as a friend, all the emotional sharing, and I getting invested. Now, I was much younger at the time. I was a NATO man at the time. That was no action transport only. That was me. I was a full NATO man. Just take and drop. Yeah, take and drop, and she just is sharing, and I getting involved, and I feeling so much in the mix, and she was not me, and I feel away, and I realized that it can't work. However, it's an individual kind of scenario, and I think if you have somebody who understanding, somebody who both of you all share a particular ethos and the chemistry and the communication open and honest, you could be accommodating to her male friends, she could be accommodating to your female friends, but naturally as the relationship, I think, get deeper and grow into a realm of, again, that benchmark, as I mentioned, which might be marriage, naturally things that just kind of fall off for some reason. And it's not because anybody fall out, People, I think, just understand that, you know what, this is a whole different life. There's a decision to make to build this life with somebody, so I might just pull back. I'll pull back a little bit, and probably, it could work for some, it can't work for others. But I think ultimately it's based on the individual and that level of communication and how open you are and if the person willing to accept it. If not, I think you have to... I learn now to kind of peg back, tone it down, and say, you know what, if this is what I want, and I want our relationship as man and woman to work out, I'll have to kind of put that on the back burner for the sake of peace. Because I value peace more than anything else. I want peace.
Facts.
I don't want no, see me, yeah, nyam, 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 nyam. I don't want that in my ears when I come home. I don't want that. You see, nyam, 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 nyam. No, we're not on that by now. I'm not on that.
So let me add to that, right? First of all, as your wife, let's go with wife being the highest definition, that's supposed to be your best friend. That's supposed to be your paramount person. In fact, I wouldn't even say your best friend. That's supposed to be a reflection of yourself. So in other words, we are one, right? And I feel as together, us being one, we could decide who that each other have as individuals in each other's lives. Because again, my wife and I are a unit. So I may, with my wife's permission, have someone outside of our relationship where I could communicate and blah, 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 blah. And it could be someone that I came into the relationship with. But if this is the person that I'm choosing, she has to be okay with the fact that this person is my friend, right? That I claim in my friend, right? Even if I loaned her some meat many, many years ago, right? Right? So I feel that, and of course, my wife would be the one who I would be saying these things to. Hey, a cold night in Speyside, I loan her some meat, you understand? This is the situation. However, I watch her kids grow up, come and meet her kids, and she's supposed to be able, at least this is the person who I intend to marry, to understand and grow with me and the rest of my friends, and vice versa. I want to meet her friends, whether it be female or male, and who may have loaned her some meat in the past as well, and I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, what I'm doing is that I am trusting her morals, her decision making, her background, and if it is that okay, this is the person that I'm choosing, I understand. She feels comfortable explaining and giving me all her history, her facts, right, so to speak. Then I'll be like, all right, cool, let's do this. You know what's going on, and that's that.
That's mature, bro. That's a real big man thing there.
That's why I use it.
Take man with a big shoulder and big heart to be like that, huh? Because ego, boy. That man has the horrors. Woman too.
Woman too.
They have ego too.
So These conversations, guys, thank you so much for once again sharing. These conversations, you know, the show may end, but the conversation always continues. And it's something that we'll continue to converse about in manhood, continue to be open, to express, to share opinions for the purposes of the show. It's not necessarily our position, but it's for the purposes of discussion on the show here at Manhood, to reach the audience and to meet you where you're at, and to hopefully touch on some topics or thoughts that might be going through your head. The closing takeaway would be honesty is the best policy. Morals is what we're about, and that honesty can come from you know where you stand, you know where your feelings are growing or growing to. Honesty within your relationship. I'm not about the fact whether it's your wife, you don't have to necessarily be married. It's whether you're in a relationship, and that commitment is based on a specific understanding. And what that understanding is where your honesty then comes in to be able to divulge and for you to be honest even with that particular person. So, God is the boss. Everybody else is just pretending. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Jameson and Racetrack. Really, really thank you, gents. Johanse, Jay, Niall, always a pleasure.
Yes, man.
Can women have guy friends? Can men have guy friends? Can men have guy friends? Can men have women friends? Can women have female friends? Friends are friends. Honesty is the best policy. Thank you so much.
Manhood, brought to you by Jameson, natural sources since 1922, and Racetrack.